Hey everyone, welcome to Art Studio 320. My name is Melanie. I rescue furniture, refinish it, and make it look pretty again. This week's project is a commission piece. It's a table, and it looks like it's been well loved. So I'm going to give it a little bit more love and bring it back to life. Stick around. A kitchen table tends to have its own unique dirt because if you have children, you know that food doesn't necessarily just stay on the plate. So it took a toothpick and some steel wool and some vinegar and water and a paper towel to get it all cleaned off. I took the legs off to make my job much easier when it came to sanding the pedestal. My sand, it's always the same formula. I start with 120 grit, then I move to 220 after cleaning off in between with a tack cloth, and then I go to a 400 grit to get a very smooth finish. I thought the finish on this table was going to be easy to sand off, but it took a long time to get where I am right here. So I decided to go with a stripper to get off that finish so I could continue on, but it wasn't going to be that easy. I left the stripper on overnight, hoping that that would really just take off any finish that was left, but it didn't. And I think what it was is it just was soaked into the grain so much that I was going to need to sand more. But you can see right here how blotchy this finish is. And after cleaning this off with mineral spirits and using a wire brush to get it clean, I had to wait for it to dry. But then I had a new problem because it was not going to sand easily. I needed to come up with a custom color stain that was going to match the chairs that belonged to my customer. Now, the chair is in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. You can't see it there. You can see it now. There are some red undertones and some yellow undertones. And I was determined I was going to use the stains I had and match that stain on the chair. So I started with a nutmeg, which is a lighter color, and then a chestnut, which has some red undertones, and then I broke out the antique walnut because it is a darker stain, but it is rich in color, the reds and the yellows. If you are trying to make a custom stain to match another piece of furniture, I suggest that you have whatever that piece of furniture is on site with you, because a picture isn't going to do it. You have to be able to physically go over, hold the piece of wood next to the piece of furniture, and kind of see if you're going in the right direction. It did take me a few tries. I didn't get it the first time. The nutmeg turned out to be a little too light. It wasn't really helping me in any way. So I eliminated the nutmeg. I kept the chestnut because I liked the red. But later on, I end up going to the hardware store, and I'm just looking at the swatches because I always do. And I found one that was so close to what I needed that I thought, well, I think that might be good to put on top of what I already have. And it turned out, you'll see in a little while. Learning about color is not sexy. You have to study color wheels and make charts and swatches and mix colors and experiment. And I suggest using watercolors when you do that, but you really do have to start at the beginning. You have to start with the primary colors and the secondary colors, because once you learn what the basic colors are and what make up those colors, you start to look at colors in a different way. You look at them as more complex. Like a brown isn't just brown. Brown is made up of a bunch of different colors, and there are lots of different browns and so forth, gray and black even. There are a lot of different kinds of colors. But once you have the basics down, once you learn what colors are made of and you understand them, I guarantee you will get better at matching colors, mixing colors, and you'll get good at it. Once you figure out the color and what colors you need to make that color, you have a formula. And the formula is the order that you put those colors down, because if you change the order, it will change the color. So as you apply the stain on different parts of your piece, you need to make sure that you're applying them in the same order every time. All right, I started with the antique walnut, which is a darker stain. I did 2 coats of that. Now I'm putting on a coat of Provincial, which has a little bit of a yellowish tinge. And then I'm going to add a little Chestnut, which has a red tinge. That should get to the color I need for that chair. Right there. That's the chair I need to match. And I think this is pretty close, except I want to add some red. But I'm going to go around and add the Provincial and then come back and do the Chestnut, because I feel like it's better once it's totally dry before I add any more color. So I'm going to put Provincial on the whole thing, let it dry, and then come back and put the Chestnut on. You can kind of get a glimpse of what I'm dealing with this tabletop. You can see how blotchy it is. And I have been sanding that top for a while, and some areas are getting lighter and some areas are not. And I really had to spot sand to try and get it all even. The problem was that some areas were becoming so thin that I could start to see the particle board, and that was a problem. Because I was matching to a set of chairs, the top coat on the chairs was a satin finish. So I am using a satin finish, which I don't usually use, to cover the entire piece. And because it's a kitchen table, I needed to make sure that this whole thing was protected, especially the top. So after discussing with my customer the issues with the top, I suggested that we stain the trim around the top and the carved area around underneath the trim. You can't really see it here, but there's a carved area. I was going to paint that and then leave the trim around the edge stained. And I suggested a wash on the top because I knew that she still wanted to be able to see the wood grain, but I couldn't stain it the way it was. It was going to look blotchy and look terrible. So I took the same color that I used around the edge and I watered down the paint. And this is something you really have to do for yourself. You have to decide how much transparency you want in the color and add water accordingly. The color I'm using is called Chestler. It's a new color by Fusion Mineral Paint. And I'm putting over the top of the Chestler because it's looking very vibrant, almost fluorescent. I'm putting Cathedral Taupe over the top. Now I did mix some cobblestone with the Chestler to tone it down a bit. And then over that, I put a wash of Cathedral Taupe to further tone it down because I didn't want it to look electric. I'm choosing to take big strokes across the top with the grain every time. So I'm going from one edge to the other when I'm wiping it back because I don't want any marks to show where I was wiping it down. I want it to look like it's part of the wood grain. I chose a roller to apply the polyurethane to the top of the table, and that turned out to be a problem. I've used a roller before, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And the last time I used it, it worked perfectly. This time, not so much. First of all, the roller was weird. It was not balanced, so it was rolling really weird. But aside from that, it was leaving a lot of bubbles that were not leveling off. So I ended up using a paintbrush and sanding off all of those bubbles. And I put on 4 coats on the top because this is a young family's table, and that table needs to be protected because there's going to be children eating at that table, spilling and banging on it, and that's okay. We want the table to be protected so that kids can be kids. Now, normally between coats of polyurethane, I use finishing pads. So they're usually between 800 and 1,000, 2,000 grit. They're very fine. In fact, the one that I use to kind of buff it is more like a leather piece. You can't feel any grit at all. But that first coat that I put on that left bubbles, I used a 400 grit and even a 200 grit in areas that were really tough. So if you're careful, you can do that. But I suggest for a normal polishing between coats of polyurethane, you use finishing pads with the much higher grit, meaning 800 to 1,200 or higher. I did finish the leaf as well, and I wanted to make sure that it went with the rest. I don't know what I would have done if it didn't match, but it was fine. It was perfectly fine, and it made a nice table. Well, we've come to the end of another project, and I think this table looks awesome. I'm really excited about it. When I started this project, I just thought I was going to refinish this table, but I ran into some issues with the wood because the finish was so damaged that I think perhaps there was some water damage even on the top. There was some on the sides, and when I started to sand down, I was sanding away that veneer, and that particle board was starting to peek through. So I started to panic a little bit because I thought pretty soon I'm not going to have any wood left. So I stopped and I texted my customer and I explained the situation, and I felt bad because I had already talked to her about this edge here, the carved part, because that had definitely been water damaged. So we had a conversation, and she said that she trusted me. Yikes. That's always really nice to hear, but it's also really scary because you absolutely want to make your customer happy. At least I do, and I think anybody in this business, that's the goal, right? So, of course, I'm changing the rules and hoping that it's okay. And I have to say, I'm really happy with the finish. I'm really happy with how this whole thing came out. It's beautiful, and it does match the chair, so that's really great. I really hope that my customers are happy and enjoy this table for a really long time. Thank you for being here. Good luck on your next project, and I'll see you next time.
You can do it.
If you ever need me, baby, just call me. I'll waste no time, love, I'll come straight to you. Oh, the river's wide, dear, and the road is muddy. Even if I gotta swim there, you know I'll be there soon. I love you like a garden underneath the rainfall, cooling off a heat wave in the summertime. Are you the kind of woman?
Hey, thanks for watching my video. You can find more videos just like this on my YouTube channel. And don't forget to subscribe.